I want you to try a little thought experiment with me for a second. Look at your hand. Seriously, just hold it up and look at it. Or, just take a deep breath and feel your chest move.
Hmm.
When you think about what you are physically, what comes to mind? Probably, flesh, blood, bone, maybe some complex chemistry bubbling away.
That's the standard biological model for sure. It's what we all learned in high school.
Right. It's comfortable. But what if I told you that, according to the stack of documents we're diving into today, that is a completely outdated, almost like a quaint way of seeing a human being?
It's certainly the 20th century view, but the documents we're analyzing today, they argue that you are actually a broadcasting station.
A broadcasting station.
Yeah, a walking, breathing node in a network constantly emitting these complex electromagnetic signals.
It sounds like hard sci-fi, or maybe something out of a cyberpunk novel. But today we're diving into a stack that includes commentary from a specialist they call Dr. Will, alongside references to, DARPA projects and this internet of myo-nano things.
Right.
And the mission here is to figure out if the biofield, something I usually associate with crystals and, yoga studios, is actually being treated by the defense industry as a hard physics discipline.
And that is the core tension here. It's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. The source material makes this compelling case that while the public thinks of the biofield as, mystical woo-woo,
Yeah, that's the word.
the military and medical industries are treating it as a measurable engineering reality, one that allows for non-contact surveillance, medical diagnostics, and potentially human control.
Okay, just to be clear, before we get into the weeds, because this is a huge leap,
Yeah.
we're talking about technology that treats the human body like a computer network.
Exactly. The sources argue we're moving past the Internet of Things, your smart fridge, your
My
thermostat,
doorbell, yeah.
into the Internet of bio-nano things where your body itself is the device.
Okay, let's unpack this, because usually when I hear biofield, my skepticism radar, it just goes way up. It feels so intangible. But the sources are adamant this isn't magic. So how do they define it in a way that, engineers and soldiers would actually care about?
That's the crucial starting point. The documents define the biofield as a massless, complex, dynamic energy field. It regulates physiological processes, yes, but physically. It's a combination of all the electromagnetic fields produced by your cells and tissues.
So it's not an aura in the spiritual sense, it's a literal emission.
Think of it like a radio signal. Every time your heart beats, every time a neuron fires, it generates a tiny electrical current. And, basic physics tells us that where there's electricity, there's magnetism. You're generating a field right now just by sitting there.
So we're all walking around generating these magnetic fields, and the argument is that this data is readable.
Highly readable. And the sources, they highlight quantum sensing as the real game changer here. I mean, this isn't just taking a temperature with a thermometer. This is using the fundamental properties of atoms and lasers to make these incredibly precise measurements of those fields.
The text mentions something called SQUIDs, which I have to say is a fantastic acronym.
It is. It stands for Superconducting Quantum Interference Devices. SQUIDs are sensors. They're sensitive enough to detect the incredibly faint magnetic fields generated by your heart and even your brain.
So in the medical world, what is that?
They call this magnetocardiography and magnetoencephalography.
Okay, let's pause there because I want to make sure I get the practical side. Usually if I want to check my heart, I need an EKG. They stick those, sticky pads all over my chest, hook me up to wires. Are we talking about doing that without the pads?
Correct. That's the non-contact part that the sources just keep emphasizing. Because magnetic fields pass right through tissue and clothing, and even walls, unlike simple electrical signals on the skin. SQUIDs can read the magnetic signal your heart puts out from a distance.
That's wild. So theoretically, you could scan someone just walking down the street.
That's the implication. And the source compares the precision here to atomic clocks, the same tech that keeps GPS satellites in sync. But here's the analogy that really made it click for me. Dr. Will, one of the voices in the transcripts, compares it to the Hubble telescope.
The space telescope, how?
Yes. Think about how the Hubble, or now the James Webb, works. It takes pictures of planets millions of miles away. It can tell you, hey, there's sulfur on that ring of Saturn, or that rock on Mars has iron.
Right, but it's not flying over and taking a scoop of the rock. It's way too far away.
Exactly. It analyzes the light spectrum, spectroscopy. It looks at the frequency of the light bouncing off the object. And because every element has a unique signature, it knows what the planet is made of.
Spectrum analysis. Okay, I think I see where this is going.
Dr. Will's point is this. If we can identify the chemical composition of a planet from deep space using spectrum analysis of its light and frequency, why on Earth do we think we can't do the same thing to a human body standing right in front of us?
Wow.
The claim is that this tech can identify minerals, chemicals, and biological states inside you without ever touching your skin.
So that is what they mean by biofield spectrum analysis. They are reading your light, your electromagnetic emissions, essentially.
In a manner of speaking, yeah. They're reading the frequencies, and the source points out this isn't even new. They trace the roots back to radionics in the 1930s and even wireless transmission ideas from like the 1880s. Yeah. But it's been rebranded. Today, it's just bioelectromagnetics.
It's unnerving to think that while we're all worried about privacy on our phones, who's reading our texts, who's tracking our GPS, or actual biology might be broadcasting data that's even more personal.
And that's just the sensing part. I mean, that's just reading the mail, so to speak. The sources go a step further. They talk about the body not just as a signal source, but as a network node.
And this is when we get into that acronym that kept popping up, WBAN.
WBAN, Wireless Body Area Network.
It sounds so incredibly corporate, like something you'd hear in a boring boardroom meeting.
It's engineering language, but it's being applied to biology. The idea is that the body is no longer a biological island. It's a node. And if you're going to treat the body like a network, well, you need cabling. You need infrastructure.
And according to these documents, the cables are already installed. We come like pre-wired.
We do. It's your nervous system, specifically the peripheral nervous system, or PNS. This is a really interesting distinction the sources make. They reference a perspective that's linked to DARPA and GlaxoSmithKline, big pharma.
Okay.
They talk about the brain, the central nervous system, as a black box.
A black box, because it's just too complicated.
It has trillions of connections. It's messy. It's so hard to decipher what a specific signal means because everything is firing at once. It's like trying to listen to one conversation in a packed stadium. But the peripheral nervous system, the nerves running to your arms, legs, liver, stomach, those are just transmission lines.
They're just the wires carrying the order.
Exactly. The source quotes this philosophy. Tap the line nearest the collar.
Tap the line nearest the collar. That sounds like wiretapping. So if you want to control the stomach, don't try to hack the brain's complex command for digest. Just tap the nerve going directly to the stomach.
Precisely. It's just easier to interface with the peripheral nerves. And I know you found this next part particularly wild. The sources claim the body has routing protocols, just like a Wi-Fi router.
Yeah, I saw that and had to reread it. They mentioned something called SimHumulator.
Yes, SimHumulator. It's an open-source simulator mentioned in the text that's used to generate human microdoppler radar data.
Microdoppler radar data? What is that?
It's basically simulating how radar bounces off tiny movements in the body. But the context here is routing. The argument is that if the body is a network, you need to route data. You need to send a signal specifically to the liver, avoiding the heart. You need what they call channel characterization.
It really does turn anatomy into IT. You're not healing an organ, you're debugging a node.
That is the core shift. We're moving from biology to engineering. The body becomes a platform.
So what's the application here? Because usually when DARPA and Big Pharma get involved, there's a specific goal. Is this just for super spies, or is there a reason this is being developed for the masses? Why build a SimHumulator?
Well, the sources frame it as healthcare 4.0. The public face of this, the pitch, is the future of medicine. They call it bioelectronic medicine.
Which, on paper sounds great. No more pills.
That's the pitch. I mean, think about how we take medicine now. You have a headache or an issue with your pancreas, you swallow a pill. That chemical, it floods your entire system. It goes to your brain, your blood, your liver, your kidneys. It goes everywhere.
Right, and that's why we have side effects. You fix the headache, but you hurt your stomach.
Exactly. It's a carpet bomb approach. Bioelectronic medicine argues. Why flood the system with chemistry when the body actually runs on electricity? Instead, you send a specific electrical pattern, a pulse, to a specific nerve.
Like a code.
Exactly like a code. You send a code that says, hey, pancreas, produce more insulin, or hey, vagus nerve, stop sending inflammation signals.
And the source explicitly mentions a DARPA program called ElectRx.
Electrical prescriptions, yes. And GlaxoSmithKline's R&D is heavily referenced here too. The goal is, and this is their term, wireless drugging.
Wireless drugging. That phrase is doing a lot of heavy lifting. It's terrifying, but also kind of efficient.
It implies you can induce a biological change without a physical substance. If it works, it's a medical revolution. But the sources argue this is already being deployed, and not just for therapy. This brings us back to the surveillance aspect.
Your radar again.
The documents cite papers claiming radar can detect heart rate, breathing, and even identify individuals through walls. They call it a heart print.
Like a fingerprint, but it's your cardiac rhythm.
Yes. Everyone's heart has a unique signature of movement and, electrical activity. The claim is that they can identify you by your heartbeat from a distance, even through concrete.
And there was a connection to the pandemic in there, right? This wasn't just some theory.
It was quite specific, actually. The source argues that during COVID-19, remote life-sensing technology was pitched as the ultimate solution for hospitals. Think about the problem. You have a highly infectious disease. Nurses and doctors are getting sick just by checking vitals.
So how do you monitor a patient's temperature and breathing without walking into the room every hour?
You use radar. You use non-contact monitoring. You sit in your hospital bed, no wires on you, but a machine on the wall knows your heart rate, your respiration, your temperature.
But the source, she isn't celebrating this as a medical breakthrough.
No, she expresses deep anger about it. She argues that this constitutes a massive ethical breach. She claims doctors and nurses are effectively hiding this anatomy from patients.
Meaning they're treating the biofield and using this digital monitoring, but they're letting the patient believe it's just magic.
Yeah.
Or just standard medicine.
Or letting them believe they aren't being monitored when they are. The argument is that the patient is completely unaware they've become part of a body area network. They aren't told that their nervous system is being read by a machine.
It's the lack of consent that's the kicker. I mean, if I'm a network node, I want to know who the admin is.
And that leads to the question of how they get a better signal. Because if you're trying to read a biofield from across the room or even from a satellite, as some of the more extreme claims suggest, you need signal clarity. The body is, noisy.
Right, and this is where we get into the stuff that sounds like it came straight out of a cyberpunk novel. The sources talk about enhancing the body to make it more readable.
Correct. The sources discuss substances that act as contrast agents. One that comes up repeatedly is methylene blue.
Now, I know methylene blue. I've seen it in health food stores. It's sold as a nootropic, right? For brain fog, energy, that sort of thing. Turns your tongue blue.
It does, and it has legitimate medical uses. But the source claims that in the context of bioelectromagnetics, it acts like a dye in a CT scan. They say it lights you up like a Christmas tree for the sensors.
So by taking it, you're making your internal biology high definition for the radar.
That is the claim. It increases the conductivity and the visibility of the neural networks. It lets the machine learning algorithms see inside the cells and even across the blood-brain barrier more clearly. It's just increasing the signal-to-noise ratio of your body.
It's like drinking barium before an X-ray, but for electromagnetic surveillance.
Exactly. And it's not just chemicals. There was a lot of talk about hydrogels.
Hydrogels, these are those like jelly-like materials.
Yes. Hydrogels are fascinating material science. They're these cross-linked polymer chains that hold a lot of water. But the source describes them acting as fuel cells within the body. These are biocompatible materials. They feel like tissue, they're soft, but they can conduct electricity and data.
So they power the network inside you.
They harvest energy from your own metabolism, glucose, oxygen, and use it to power these bio-nano networks. The expert commentary in the source, it links this directly to human-machine symbiosis.
Human-machine symbiosis, that sounds an awful lot like transhumanism, merging us with AI.
Physically and digitally. The source argues we are being transitioned from pure biological entities to entities that can interface directly with the cloud. And if you think that's abstract, the source points to a concept called rent-a-human.
I saw that. I honestly thought it was a joke at first.
It sounds like a dystopian satire, I know. It's described as a platform where AI agents can rent human bodies to perform tasks in the physical world.
Like a gig economy app, but for your actual limbs.
Well, while it might function like a TaskRabbit app on the surface, the source uses it as a metaphor for the ultimate loss of autonomy in this new system. If your body is a readable, writable network, and AI can send signals to your nervous system, are you really the one driving?
That is the scariest part of this whole deep dive. It's not just about privacy, about someone knowing my heart rate. It's about agency.
Yeah.
The idea that you might just be a passenger in your own nervous system.
It completely redefines what it means to be human. We're used to the idea of privacy, meaning nobody reads our emails.
Mm-hmm.
But the sources are asking, What is privacy if your cortisol levels, your heart rate, your neural firing patterns are broadcast to the cloud in real time?
And not just read, but written too. If they can send a signal to calm you down or to speed you up.
Exactly. The source mentions those routing protocols targeting specific organs. If an external signal can tell your liver to release glucose or your brain to feel anxiety, the boundary between self and system, it just dissolves.
It really paints a picture of a world moving from chemical biology pills and potions to electromagnetic biology.
That's the key takeaway. The sources argue this shift has already happened in the defense and high-tech sectors, and medicine is just now catching up. The biofield isn't a mystical aura. In their view, it's the user interface for the human body.
It makes you look at the world so differently. Next time you walk through a security scanner or even just sit in a so-called smart building.
You have to wonder, is the network just around you, or is it running through you?
And that leads us to the final thought the sources want us to consider. It's a provocative one.
It is. The sources suggest that because this technology taps into the peripheral nervous system, the cables of the body, it can mimic natural signals perfectly.
So next time you feel a sudden gut feeling or a weird shift in your mood for no apparent reason.
The sources suggest asking yourself, is that actually you? Is that your intuition? Or is that just a routing protocol finding its destination on your network?
It's a chilling thought to end on. We've covered a massive amount of ground today, from squids and quantum sensing to wireless drugging and the Internet of bio-nano things.
It is a lot to process. But understanding that the definition of anatomy is expanding to include these electromagnetic fields is really the first step in understanding the argument these sources are making.
Absolutely. Whether you believe the full extent of the control aspect or not, the technology itself, the sensing, the networking, is clearly something we all need to pay attention to.
Agreed. It brings a whole new meaning to listen to your body.
Stay curious, stay shielded. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.